Chapter 3, Lesson 4, Multiplying Integers. You will be able to multiply integers. The product of two integers with different signs is negative. So all you need to do when you're multiplying integers, multiply as normal, but then if it's a negative and a positive, the result will be negative. So 4 times negative 3, think of 4 times 3, which is 12, but because they have different signs, the answer is negative 12. Letter B, 3 times negative 5. 3 times 5 is 15, but 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Negative 6 times 8 is negative 48. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. A submersible is diving from the surface of the water at a rate of 90 feet per minute. What is the depth of the submersible after 7 minutes? If it is diving from the surface of the water, it is descending, which means that 90 feet per minute is actually a negative 90. And we need to multiply that by the 7 minutes to see what the depth would be. So negative 90 times 7, think negative 9 times 7, which is negative 63, and tack on that 0. So negative 630 feet is its depth. Now, when you multiply two integers with the same sign, it's positive. So negative 11 times negative 9 is positive 99. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. And of course, positive numbers, 4 times 2 is positive 8. They have the same sign. They're both positive. 2 times 12 is 24. Letter E, negative 4 squared. Remember, if you had 4 squared, it would be 4 times 4. So negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4, which makes a positive 16. Letter F, negative 5 squared is negative 5 times negative 5, which equals a positive 25. When you're multiplying three numbers together, just multiply from left to right. So first, let's do negative 3 times negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive. So this would be positive 12. Then bring down the negative 2. And a negative times a positive results in a negative product. So 12 times negative 2 is negative 24. Letter B, negative 2 times 1 times negative 7. Start with negative 2 times 1, which is negative 2. Bring down the negative 7. Negative 2 times negative 7 is positive 14. 3 times 2 times negative 3. Start with the first two digits. 3 times 2 is 6. Bring down negative 3. And then 6 times negative 3 is negative 18. Letter D, negative 1 times negative 3 times negative 4. Start with negative 1 times negative 3. Same signs means it's a positive result, so this would be positive 3. Bring down the negative 4. 3 times negative 4. Different signs means it's a negative result, so it would be a negative 12. Evaluate each expression if A equals negative 1, B equals 2, C equals negative 6, and D equals 4. So here we are plugging in like we have done before, only it's multiplication. So letter A is negative 5 times A. Bring down that negative 5, and where you see the A, I want you to put the numbers in parentheses. And our A is negative 1, so replace that A, substitute that A with negative 1. And now just multiply. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. Letter B, negative AB squared. First of all, bring down that negative sign and put your parentheses for A, put your parentheses for B, and bring down that square. So now let's plug in. A is negative 1 and B is positive 2. Now the order of operations states that yes, we must do parentheses first. However, when there's only one digit in the parentheses, there's nothing to do. Our next step would be exponents. So we need to take care of 2 to the second power first. Remember, this is really 2 times 2. So let's take care of that first. 2 times 2 is 4. And bring down everything else as you see it. Okay? Now let's do negative 1 times 4, which would be negative 4. However, we still have that negative sign hanging out in front. This is really an invisible negative 1. So we would then say negative 1 times negative 4, which would result in a positive 4. So let's look at that one again. We have negative 1 times 2 squared. We need to take care of the exponents before anything else in this particular problem. So 2 to the second power is the same as 4. And I just brought down the negative 1. I then took care of the negative 1 times 4, which resulted in negative 4. And again brought down that negative sign. That negative sign really has an invisible 1 in front of it. So this is really negative 1 times negative 4. And when they're the same sign, our product is positive. Letter C, A times C. Again, I'm going to put parentheses wherever my variables are. And then I'll plug them in. A was negative 1, and C is negative 6. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. Letter D, A times B times C times D. So again, I'm going to put blank parentheses. A is negative 1, B is 2, C is negative 6, and D is 4. And I'm just getting that from my instructions here. Multiply left to right. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And bring down everything else. Negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. And bring down everything else. And positive 12 times positive 4 is positive 48. Letter E, negative C times D. Bring down that negative sign and leave your parentheses for C and D. C is negative 6 and D is 4. And remember again, there's that invisible negative 1. So we could even start over here and take care of that right away. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. And bring down the positive 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Letter F, negative BD squared. Bring down the negative sign. Bring down your sets of parentheses for B and D, and put that second power there. Now plug them in. B is 2, and D is 4. We need to take care of 4 squared first, and remember, it's the same as 4 times 4, which is 16. And bring down that negative 2. Again, remember that this is really a negative 1. It's invisible. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And bring down that 16. And then negative 2 times 16 is negative 32.